What's up, everybody? Dan here with Dan and Sarah Makers, and we are kicking off a series on drywall. We haven't had the opportunity to do one of these series before just because you gotta have a room to install drywall in to show how to do drywall. So we have an upstairs area here in our shop. It's about 400 square feet or 20 foot by 20 foot roughly. It's going to become the Dan and Sarah Makers space, which we're really excited about. We haven't had one of these spaces here to actually enjoy making videos and doing projects for a while. So we're excited about that. We are going to look at hanging drywall, mudding and taping drywall, and then finishing drywall, including a texture. This is a really kind of awkward space. It's tough getting the drywall up here. The stairs aren't quite to code. They're really short. There's a loft above it. There's a low slope roof. So it's kind of a challenge getting the drywall up here. We also have exposed beams about 5 foot on center in the ceiling that we want to have left exposed. We've got gable end walls that go up at an angle. We have a ridge beam that's going to be exposed. And we just have kind of a combination of different things. These, while they're going to be kind of annoying to drywall around because it's not just a huge open field that we just go bonkers in nonstop, we're going to have a lot of cutting, a lot of little pieces, and just awkward things like that. So it will be good for you to see as a viewer because you'll see a lot of these unique challenges that you might see while you're trying to drywall a space. So we've got windows, we've got doors, we've got wraps around the windows, things like that. So we'll try and include a bunch of tips and tricks that I've learned over the years that I've been taught that make the job a little bit easier, less frustrating, and also create a better finished product. So we're going to start with getting the drywall up here. We've already got about a quarter of our drywall up. It's, like I said, a challenge getting it up here, so we're going to do a little bit of packing drywall, hang some drywall, pack some more drywall, hang some drywall. So we don't have somebody hired to do it, and we're going to start on the ceiling. So that's how you want to do it. That way at the edges of your walls, you have your wall drywall supporting the edges of your ceiling.
Nice nail bags, Dan. Where'd you get those? They look really new. How long have you had those?
A few years. I think I've actually got a video on these, so there's proof. I'm going to go ahead and fold this Romex wire up, and I'm going to tuck it in to the box as high as I can. That way when we roto-zip around these receptacles or outlet boxes, we don't run the risk of cutting our wire, which can happen. I want them back in the back of the box as far as they can get, so I'm a good 1.5 inches up.
We're gonna go with this bay first because it's the furthest out of the way from how we're bringing in the drywall.
Yep.
And we're going to have to use one full piece and then a little bit of one.
Yeah, so a 4-foot sheet will come to right about there. So it's,
how awkward.
It's a little awkward. This bay is a little bit undersized. The other ones are a little bit wider. So the other ones will have a longer ripper piece. But we're going to install the drywall lengthwise running down here because if we don't, because these are over 4 feet, there would be a huge number of butt seams or butt joints in this field to try and mud and tape and hide. So it's just going to be easier to do a beveled joint running down the length of the bay.
Because the long sides of the drywall have the bevels.
Yep.
And the short sides, the 4-foot sides, have the butt end.
Yep, they're square.
And so you want to try to get the beveled side in the field.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Easier, quicker to mud and tape. We need to notch for around this 2x. So my measurements will be basically either side of this, and we'll notch so that we can slide the sheet tight to the beam. And if you notice, these beams up here are wrapped in visqueen, and the reason for that is we do want these beams to be exposed and look like wood, and not look like wood that's got a ton of drywall mud and paint and primer and texture stuck to the surface, or scrubbed with a scrub brush, so it'll maintain the patina, keep everything clean. I've got my measurement from the ridge down to notch out for that 2x8 beam up at top. This sheet, this is the white side. This is the side that faces out. The back side has more of a brown paper coating on it. So this is the side we're going to see. So I need to make sure that when this goes up and then rotates into place, we cut the right spot,
Yeah.
which is actually going to be right about here on the bottom.
Yeah, and for a dyslexic person like me, this gets really awkward.
Yeah. So we flip it. We flip it this way.
Yeah, it's the right side. If this is the gable edge. Or
That's the
height,
top.
Yeah.
If this was the top,
Then it would be on this side.
it'd be over
The top
here.
side. Mhm.
So if we treat this as the top,
Okay, put top on there. Like we're literally right top on there. Okay.
it's still going to be on the bottom. No? Wait. If I pick this up and I rotate and that's the top.
Dude,
Yeah, I want this to be the top.
you do?
Yeah. Yeah. Watch me mess up the very, very first sheet. 51 and a half to 68 and 3/4.
Scribble that one out so you don't get confused later.
Now we're going around an 1.5 inch thick piece of wood, but if I cut it an 1.5 inch, we're just going to fight it. So I'm going to cut it more like 1 3/4 inches. That's not a big deal.
The quarter round will cover it. Or just
Yep.
mud and tape, whatever.
So I still haven't mastered the art of the tape measure utility knife thing. So that's just how it is. So what I can do with my little drywall jab saw, just score it on one side.
If you score it on the face, then it snaps and then you can just cut the paper on the back.
Backing paper, yeah. Just to make it easier, I'm marking out the centers of our blocking or ceiling joists. This makes it a little bit easier if you haven't done a lot of drywall. Trying to find where your joists or studs are can be a little bit of a trick. So I've marked 2 foot on centers, which is our spacing up on top. And with this particular situation, we're going to have our screws at a 6 and 12 screwing pattern, which means on the edges where we have continuous blocking, there will be a screw every 6 inches on center. And then in the field, middle of the sheet, it's going to be every 12 inches. So if you want to make it look nice, you can use your T-square and then just make a little tick mark every 12 inches on center where your screws should go. Now I would highly recommend using pencil only on your drywall, because ballpoint pens, Sharpies, ink pens like that, they will bleed through and you have to go through and use like a Kills oil-based primer of some sort to really seal that ink in so it doesn't just keep bleeding through and you have these black pencil marks everywhere. So use pencil, don't use a pen. Okay. Can you get it all the way up?
It's hooked on the, there we go. Okay, do you want me to get another one up there?
Yeah, at the very ridge, because we gotta go that way.
Okay.
There we go. Now we can slide it uphill.
Okay.
Does it look tight? Ish.
Right on here, yeah. That side needs to be pushed up a tad.
Of course, this all might not be square too.
I don't think it is.
All right, that's convenient.
It's been a while since we've done this.
Yeah.
So there's all your upper body strip. So there is a gap still. It doesn't look like it's quite even either.
Along the exterior wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a little dimpler attachment on your...
Well, a
Screw
drywall
gun?
screw gun has it built in, but yes,
Okay.
it leaves the screw just slightly below the surface.
So that's why it's better to use that instead of a regular screw gun, right?
It's a lot faster and a lot more precise, or uniform, I guess would be a better term.
It's also a lot easier to mud later.
Yeah. And if you notice here, I've got this kind of circle thing. That's our first receptacle. So basically our light switch box. I mark that out, center of the box. We'll come through with the rotozip and cut it out real quick. I don't want to hit the screws and tighten them up because that's going to create kind of a bow in the panel right there. So I plunge in to the middle of the box. Wires are deep enough that we're not hitting the wires. I trace over to the side of the box. I hit the side, I jump over, and then I trace around the outside. And that gives us our cutout. So if you see here with the screw in, the box is almost flush with the drywall itself. So if I had started installing the screws before I cut it out, I'd probably be breaking through the drywall with the screw because there'd be a void behind it. Why can't we have just a normal room?
Nobody gets normal rooms, okay? If you want cool looking stuff, it's not gonna be normal. All right, we're good.
Is it tight uphill?
Yes. On your left it is. Thing is really pushing it.
We have a small little gap left here. This is the 8-foot side of the sheet, so it's actually got a little bit of a bevel in it. It starts about here and it gets thin here. At the butt end, where the two panels meet at 4 foot wide, it's a square or flat surface. These are harder to tape and hide than these beveled seams. So what we're going to do for this filler strip is we're going to rip the edge off of one sheet, and then the remainder of that sheet, since it's going to be like 43 inches wide of sheet, we'll cut it down and we'll use it horizontally at the short wall here. And then we also have some other areas like inside the staircase that take less than a full 4 foot wide sheet. So we'll be able to use the remainders of those sheets in that area. We will have a little bit of waste because every single one of these bays gets something like that, but we'll use up as much of that excess as we can elsewhere. So we're staggering our seams 4 foot So each butt end joint will be 4 foot offset. Pretty standard for drywall. I measured at what will be one end of this sheet and the other end from the existing sheets to the wall, and we're at 5 3/16 and 5 1/4 inches wide. So it's pretty darn parallel. But to make life easy, we're going to cut this ripper or strip at 5 1/8 inches. So I marked that end at 5 1/8 down. I'll mark this one at 5 1/8. And like I said, I'm not really good at the whole hold your utility knife tape measure thing. So I'll chalk line it. People can laugh. So then I'll just use my knife.
We can't see your knife.
I'm sorry. I'm left-handed. You're on the wrong side. Deal.
Now he'll just use the knife with his left hand.
It's real easy for the knife to get crooked and start wandering on you and you start getting away from your line. So I try and lock my body in and move my whole body and just keep everything kind of locked in and not try and do it with just my wrist. Tends to go a lot smoother. So now I'll break it, I'll reach underneath, and now coming the other way. I'll cut part way there. Finish scoring it on this side, and then I'm going to break it back that way and really break it. Again, lightweight drywall. It's not as strong as real drywall. So we're going to do our 4 foot piece starting out. Excellent. Just exactly how I planned to do it. We're progressing along. We've got this first ceiling bay done on both sides of the ridge. That means we can start hanging our back wall. The floor's out of level, so it kind of runs, it looks like the drywall is running up into the air down on this end by about an inch. Not ideal, but we'll make it work. In a renovation remodel type project like this with an older building or a unique building, there's a lot of kind of like stuff you got to deal with. Walls aren't flat, they aren't level. Studs move, so they're offset from above here to below there. So it's just what we got to deal with. So there's one area where our angle cut was a little bit off because of the level in the floor. We put a filler strip in. It's just kind of a backer for corner mud and tape. So not perfect, but we'll make it work. As for this area here, I have chosen to break the next panel, not exactly 4 foot off of this, because again, our stud spacing is weird. So it's going to break on this stud to this stud, and I had to cut a 1/2 inch off the sheet. So it's 95 and a half inches instead of 96 inches to get a center to center. I put a piece of drywall across here so that I could take our T-square and find out where our actual 48-inch height will be so I can get my angle cut. So I've just put the T-square on the bottom of this, which sits on the panels. That way when we set our sheet on top, I know where it is, because right now it's kind of floating in space unless I put this area to measure my angle in. So that'll give me a good accurate angle cut. I'll cut it, we'll flop it on top. I'll mark the studs on the drywall ceiling before we put the panel in place so we know where the studs land above our panel.
Yeah, because they are not consistent at all.
Now, this beam, this post here, it's got probably a 1/2 inch gap behind it. So it kind of goes off and does its own thing. So our furring strips are a little bit proud of it here. So again, it's what it is for an old building. So try and make it fairly straight, fairly level and smooth. That's just what you got to deal with.
And then cover it all in mud.
And then slap mud on everything textured, and nobody will know the difference.
Okay.